Hello, fellow pipers, preppers, apocalypse, thrill writers. Typing Piper here, and going for just a walk. Didn't really feel like dealing with a pipe today, and it's 22 degrees out, which compared to the last week, it's pretty warm. So, getting out, enjoying it. Found my gloves that work with my phone. And let's get into it, shall we? So I just wrote an article for thecollapseexperiment.com. Check it out on WordPress, where I talked about Agenda 21 in 2021. And a lot of people have been talking about the Great Reset, and that is definitely part of it. There's also the UN's new Agenda 2030, which again is definitely part of it. And the interesting thing with Agenda 2030, they definitely made it inaccessible for other people to access the works. You can buy the books on Amazon. I've looked it up. And even something like a 64-page summary of one of their sub-programs for Agenda 2030, it's like $150. And there's, from what I saw, at least a half dozen books total covering that topic. And they're all insanely priced. So when it comes to Agenda 2030, it's really just grabbing snippets here and there from other places that have looked into it. Accessing the actual material, that's tough. However, the Great Reset, that's $10 on Amazon. Bought that, been reading that. And as for Agenda 21, I've gotten that book from the library before. I've researched it in the past, and there's definitely a lot of programs going on right now. And prior to 2020, it was slow. It was, these new mandates in cities where it's like, well, you need to have a biking lane going through here. There hasn't been one for 50 years. Now all of a sudden the cities are required to have a bike lane, or like in, I believe it's Seattle, and I think Traverse City in northern Michigan is now doing it, where they take certain streets downtown inaccessible to cars, pedestrians, traffic only, or bikes. And that's a new thing that's been happening. So, and actually I didn't even touch on any of that stuff with the article I wrote. What I was writing about was Bill Gates becoming the largest farmland owner in the U.S. And then a couple weeks later, he becomes the #1 shareholder of the Canadian Railway. So found that to be very interesting, and had a bunch of alarms going off in my head, because part of Agenda 21 is getting rid of the highway, the truck system for when it comes to shipping. Getting rid of that, going back to the railway system, because apparently it pollutes less. So if you're not in a city that has a rail line going through it, if you're in those suburbs where you're driving 30 minutes to work, and that place that you live does not have a railway going to it, and you only have a few stores, you're SOL. Look at moving in the next 10 years. Because if you don't, they're going to do it for you. So that's where this stuff is heading. As part of the 2030 project, you have Boris Johnson, Macron, I believe Trudeau in Canada might have also done something, although I'm not sure, where they pledge that 30% of the land in the country is going to be rewild. Basically, they move people off of it, ranches, farms, whatever. That land is just basically abandoned and wildlife takes over. That's also part of the UN's Agenda 21, is the majority of land in the country. Of course, 30%, that's a good start for the next 10 years, but I believe in Agenda 21, it's something like 70 to 75% of the land will either be inaccessible to humans or highly regulated farmland, which of course we all know is going to be owned by major corporations who are growing shit that people really shouldn't be eating, like soy and corn. Definitely not foods that are good for you. And there's also this push, and this is part of the Great Reset, to go away from animal-based protein, and they want you to start eating bugs. That's just gross. So with all the stuff that I'm talking about right now, you can find the articles on my website. They're at the end of the article, so yeah, I'm putting all this stuff together, and yeah, it's basically organizing the chaos that is happening during this lame ass impeachment. But there's a heck of a lot going on. Just to summarize some of the stuff that I've so far skipped over, the farm bailout programs that Trump started because of the tariff war that we are having with China, Biden stopped that in the first couple days he was in office. That was one of his first executive orders. No more money going to farms. Now there's this $1.9 trillion stimulus package that they're trying to pass. And keep in mind, side note here, they're really not collecting any taxes right now, which means they're printing off more money that we don't have. So there is that. This $1.9 trillion stimulus package, part of that is bailout money for minority farmers because they were disproportionately affected by COVID. And I call bullshit on that, not because they're minorities, but because if you can't figure out to switch to a CSA when you were providing to restaurants, maybe grocery stores, before COVID, if you didn't know how to change your business model or think that you shouldn't have to, or whatever the excuse is, well, you're wrong. And you basically did yourself in. Because I have heard, I have read, and I've seen plenty of interviews with other farmers when this stuff started going down, and all of a sudden they're no longer getting orders from the restaurants that they supplied to because the restaurants were not open. They switched their business model. They said, oh, let's go online. People are going to be wanting to be able to get fresh food and stuff. They switched over to a CSA. They switched over their crops. And keep in mind, there was time to do that because a lot of this stuff started, the lockdown started in March. And so I don't know how they get this whole, like, certain people because of their skin color, which just sounds completely racist to me to begin with. Well, it's because they're black. Really? Okay. Sounds like they're just farmers. So, yeah, they get a bailout. Meanwhile, if you're a farmer and you're white, well, screw you. You've had it too good for too long. And regardless of when you started farming, when you started your company, when you bought the land, that doesn't matter. What matters is the color of your skin, because let's face it, our government is getting pretty freaking racist right now. And if they thought people were racist before all of this BS, wait until people start learning, well, Antoine down the street, he got a bailout because, you know why. And then Jim Bob down the street, he gets screwed when he was in the exact same situation, but he doesn't get a bailout because he's white. I think Jim Bob's going to have a bit of a problem with the fact that he was abandoned while somebody else was bailed out. You just can't do that kind of policy, because now you're just creating animosity between certain groups. And I believe they're doing it on purpose in order to separate people even more than they were before. Because one group is going to feel like they were left behind, Trump supporters, and the other group is going to feel like, they're finally getting whatever it is that they think or feel like they deserve for, I don't know. And quite frankly, when they talk about this equity bullshit, when you hear that word equity, remember whatever is following that is a bunch of BS. Whenever they say something about equality, well, that's just leading up to the whole equity argument. That's BS. You hear these E words, and just keep in mind that person, if you look like me, that person is not your friend. And they're trying to get you into the club. You don't want to be in that club, because eventually, if you look like me, they're going to eat you up, chew you up, spit you out, crap you out, when you're done being their useful idiot. I'm going off on a tangent again, aren't I? So a few other things that came up in the article is the Biden administration is now requiring farmers and ranchers, if you work with animal protein, they're requiring GPS tracking for all crops and cattle, protein, poultry, whatever it is that you sell. They want logging and GPS and these complete records of where your stuff has been for you to sell to the public. And so if you're supplying to a restaurant, that restaurant is required to get all this paperwork for the bean sprouts that they just bought from you. And if they don't have the paperwork, they get in trouble. And if they get in trouble, you get in trouble. Because you got to have the paperwork, because those bean sprouts, they're dangerous. So of course, this is adding to the workload of farmers who probably don't have the money or the infrastructure or the time to fill out said paperwork. And even if you did, what are you going to do? Like, you have 10,000 bushels of corn and it's going to 20 different places. Odds are they don't want to just know the GPS coordinates of your one field. They want to know whether it's from the northeast side of the field or the southeast side. It's unreasonable expectations put on people who really can't afford to do anything different. Then we get into the capital gains tax. Oh yeah. So the Biden administration wants to raise the capital gains tax, which traditionally has been hovering around, last time I checked into it, it was like 15%. Capital gains tax is that stuff that you pay on the interest that you get from your savings account. I don't know how many people remember this, but you used to get interest on your savings account. I don't think I've earned any interest on mine, probably 20 years. But that was a thing. If you trade stocks, whatever profits you make on those trades, 15% goes to the government. You inherit a house, and the value of that house has gone up from the time that person giving you the house bought it. You have to pay the 15% of the difference on that house. Here's where the farmers come in. The average American farmer is, I believe, something like 68 or 70 years old, which means they're going to be dropping like flies pretty soon in the next 10 years. Go figure, the 2030 project. They're going to start dropping like flies. Their kids are going to inherit this property. Now, they could leave it to one kid who wants to take over the family business. But the problem is, when Jim Bob bought the farm back in 1983, he probably bought it for like $200,000, right? Same farm. Now, in 2021, that farm is estimated to be worth, let's say, $5 million. Which means you have to now pay 15% on the $4,800,000 that the government claims that you are gaining by taking over your family business, inheriting the family property. You now have to pay 15% of that. Who has 15% of that? That's what? $600,000-ish that person has to dish out if they want to keep the farm, which means that most people are going to be in the situation where they're like, we don't have this, we can't keep it, we can't pay the taxes on it. I guess we're going to have to sell it and hopefully get that $6 million. Because, of course, if they don't sell it, then they owe back taxes on said property that they now are responsible for. So yeah, it's by raising the taxes on capital gains and having it affect the farmers like they're doing, and implementing all these other projects at the same time, they're basically driving out anybody who wants to have a family business or a family business they can hand off to their kids, which is complete. So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of families. And what are they going to do? Oh, move to the city. Yay. Just what I want. Go back to having lead in my water. Hey, here Flint is really nice this time of year. Oh yeah, that sounds great. So, that's what the article is pretty much about. And I think I might have actually left some stuff out now that I think about it. But that's where we're at. That's where we're going. This is the Great Reset Agenda 2030, Agenda 21 project that they're implementing. And I don't know. I mean, we just hit February. We've got 52 executive orders so far from our great, popular, most elected leader ever, boring Biden. And, I remember every time Trump signed an executive order, and I was one of these people were complaining about, like, that's not legal, that's not how we pass laws, that's fascism. And Mr. Drooly, probably word depends in the White House, yeah, he's just signing them left and right. Lord knows he's not reading a damn thing that they put in front of him. No one ever does. And this is the kind of stuff that we're getting. So this is what we have to look forward to. Agenda 21 in 2021. Keep on typing.